Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Is it bad on my phone that under my contacts I listed the suit as potential spam? Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors.
To each his own.
Sunbury. Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Online at sunburymotors.com. You want great new inventory? They have it. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. All top of the line right there. With a sales staff that is going to work with you. Your budget's critical to them. They have all this repeat customers. Why? Because they're just good. They always work with customers. Customer service means everything at Sunbury Motors. Maybe a pre-owned vehicle fits your budget. Well, if it does, they have a great selection there, all with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Time now for our play-by-play call of the day. Tobias Harris gets it done for the Sixers.
Harris taking Bullock all the way in, laying in two. Remember, once again, Reggie Bullock.
No more open looks for the Knickerbockers.
Harris again taking Bullock down to the weight room and having his way. Tobias Harris.
Is that Zumoff? Is that Z?
Oh, yeah.
It's Mark Zumoff? Outstanding.
Yeah. Ala Abdenabi, his partner, too, on the call.
They have been... Zoom's been a great friend of the show. Appreciate him very much. All right. So let's get to the NCAA Wrestling Championships. 2 years. 2 years since we've had an NCAA Wrestling Championship. Well, it's going to be in St. Louis starting tomorrow. With that, we bring in the Hall of Famer himself, Jeff Byers. Jeff, welcome back. Great to have you with us. It has been 2 years since this thing.
Always nice to be with you, and certainly excited to get this tournament underway.
2 years. 2 years. Can you believe that?
No, I really can't. It's been a very strange couple of years, that's for sure.
All right, so let's start with this. The Big Ten provides a great primer for what we're about to see because the best wrestling is in this conference. So Robbie Howard at 125, what lessons do you think he learned out of his Big Ten experience that he can apply to this?
I think a couple of things, Steve. One is just knowing, and not that he didn't know that going into the Big Ten tournament, but it's different when you actually feel it and go through it, that you've got to be ready to go right from the opening whistle and just wrestle through every situation right till the final whistle in every bout. And Robbie's a guy, Steve, I just think every time he is out on the mat, he's learning something. Because of the injury, the shoulder surgery he had after the state tournament last year, he has really had very limited time on the mat here, even in the room. And he just has not had the normal progression that you would see from a freshman over the course of an entire season. But what we're seeing in the short time that he's been on there is pretty dramatic improvement. And I really think, Steve, he has a chance to get on the podium here this weekend.
All right, so now at 133, Roman Bravo Young will go in as one of the favorites because he'll be the number 2 seed. He is now a Big Ten champion. That has to bolster him. Stylistically, how does he fit in this 133-pound bracket?
Yeah, his quickness, and Cody Sanderson said it from the day they signed Roman, that he's just the quickest wrestler that he's ever worked with. And that quickness is now combined with strength and veteran experience. I mean, he's really a guy that has been able to put it all together. And I think he can match up with different styles because of his skill set now and what he brings to the table. And, you know, if we do get a Roman Bravo Young Dayton Fix final, I think it is going to be a wildly entertaining bout. I think, you know, Dayton Fix is certainly the one guy that you're not entirely sure that Roman can beat if they match up. But I think everybody else in the field, Bravo Young, the way he's wrestling right now and with the improvements he's made, Steve, I just think it'll take a special effort. And there's a lot of really good kids there at 33, but I think it'll take a special effort from somebody other than Dayton Fix to be able to beat Roman this year.
Jeff, every sport's about adjustments. So Nick Lee's at 141, and boy, was he hit with a powerful ride in the Big Ten championship. Now, you got to get there, but what adjustment does he need to make to get himself to the top of the podium?
To be honest with you, Steve, I think it's avoid getting underneath.
Yeah,
it's a pretty simple and obvious strategy, and a lot easier said than done because Ironman is terrific at the takedowns as well. But I'm just not sure that there's a better rider in the country, a better pure top wrestler than Jaden Ironman. And I really think if you're Nick Lee, if you do get that rematch, and he'll have some work to do to get to that final bout because Sebastian Rivera, again, I think those top three guys at 41 are as good as anybody out there. And, I mean, flip a coin on any given day. But for Nick Lee, to me, if he does face Ironman and that is in the finals, I think the key is getting that first takedown and then avoiding giving up a takedown, and obviously when you have the choice, go neutral and don't allow yourself to get underneath that ride. And listen, there's some technical things I'm sure they're working on with Nick, and I'm not saying he can't get out because, Nick's as good as there is on bottom as well. But I'm just not sure, again, that there's a better rider than Jaden Ironman, and I just think if you can avoid putting him in that position, you do it.
Because Nick Lee has all the tools to be a national champion. That's why you look at it.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, 157 Brady Berge. I got the sense that the Big Ten was a little disappointing for him. He's a 12 seed at this, and I think you would agree he's capable of better.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was one of those situations, and it's just, I mean, this is where you're at right now with Brady and with everything he's been through is against most of those upper-level guys, probably anybody in the top 15 or so in the country, it's going to come down to a takedown in that third period. And, Brady more often than not has been able to get that, gave it up in a couple of the Big Ten bouts, and I think that's obviously the adjustment. Again, easier said than done, but he's just got to be the guy that goes out and wins that third period. I think he'll be close in every bout. I mean, I don't think anybody, even the Ryan Deacons or the Hayden Hidleys, I don't think any of them are going to run away from Brady Berge. But it's in that third period, you've just got to find a way to get the takedown and be the guy that comes out on top.
Would it be safe to say that for Joe Lee, the Big Ten was a learning experience? He'll go in as a 23 seed in the NCAAs, but what kind of learning experience was it for Joe Lee at the Big Tens?
Yeah, I think a big one. And listen, I think I don't know that it was quite as disastrous as what I think some of the fans might think it was in that. And Cal's talked about this often over the years. He would much prefer, especially with a freshman wrestler, that you're getting beat because of over-aggressiveness than being too tight. And they'll correct some of the technical, and that's what it was. I mean, it's technical things, and he likes the big throws, and, there's a lot of really good guys out there that know how to counter those big throws. So, it's going to be just some subtle adjustments here from a technical standpoint. I think regardless of what happens this weekend, Joe Lee is going to be a much improved wrestler next season, having gone through what he's gone through this year. And then, again, to me, it's more about having that mindset and talent, and he has the mindset and the talent. Now it's about cleaning things up. And, he gets a little sloppy for this level of wrestling. There's no question about that. But, again, it's easier to clean that stuff up than it is to get somebody to change their mindset into, hey, we need you to be aggressive. If you're not aggressive, that's just a much harder challenge for a coaching staff. So I'm really curious to see what he does this weekend, Steve. Truthfully, I won't be surprised if he goes 0-2 and doesn't get a point for Penn State in the team race. And I also won't be surprised if he finds his way on the podium. It's just a matter of whether or not, he can hit a couple of those moves and then, pull a couple of upsets. And truthfully, I think that matchup in the first round, Travis Whitlake is a terrific wrestler, but I don't think that's somebody that you look at and say, well, there's just no hope there for Joe Lee. I think that's a pretty even matchup going in. Whitlake's just been more consistent for sure this season.
Yeah, I think Whitlake's 16-1, I think something like that this year.
Yeah.
Carter Starachi put on quite a show at the Big Ten Championship, and he did it as the season went. As you watch, and he's a 3 seed here, as you watch the redshirt freshman work his way through the season, what kind of maturity did he develop on the mat?
Yeah, Steve, I really think that opening loss to DJ Washington was the best thing that happened to him because it really got him refocused. And I don't think he was full of himself or anything like that going into it. But I really think having that loss to open the season, just kind of got him to really focus in on doing the little things right and understanding that, doing all of the little things that they preach about in practice each day, that's what leads to the big objective here at the end of the season. And I'm really glad he got the look at Michael Kemmer. Obviously about didn't go the way he would have wanted, but I think, there are, again, some technical things there that they can work on and make adjustments to. And, I think Carter is one of 3 or 4 guys there at that weight class that is capable of winning the national title this weekend.
And there's no question the number 1 seed is Aaron Brooks at 184. He takes nothing for granted along the way. That's why he just keeps winning the way he does. When you look at Aaron Brooks, right, what makes him, in your mind, poised to be ready for this moment?
Yeah, he is one of those guys, Steve, and obviously Cal's done a great job of recruiting these guys throughout his tenure here with Penn State, but he's just one of those guys that does not get fazed by anything. He really just has a relaxed confidence. And, he could get thrown to his back and be down. He could get thrown to his back a couple of times and be down 12-2, and he's just going to think to himself, okay, I got to methodically go about getting myself back in this match. He just does not panic, and much like the other great ones that Penn State has had, he just loves wrestling so much, and there's such a passion that he does not there's not a situation that he gets himself into where he hasn't been in it before, and he doesn't have something from his past experience to draw on to work himself out of it. But he is just so steady in all 3 phases and just loves to compete. He's, again, just one of the special ones. And, he has all the physical tools, all the mental tools, and now it's a matter of just being able to go out and let it fly and have fun with it. And that's the one thing he does do. He's a guy that just brings it every day in practice with a genuine smile on his face.
Michael Beard at 197. He's a 15 seed, and he's right out of the gate. I think he's got a 50-50 with Jacob Kozer of Navy. What can that do for his confidence to get into a 50-50 bout with a guy like that and come out of it in the winner's bracket?
Yeah, it's a big one, Steve, and it's a dangerous matchup. Kozer's really good. Michael's and he's one of those guys, Steve, that and I think kind of like Brady Berge, I really think he has the capability of being on the podium and maybe even fairly high on the podium here at the end of the weekend. I think if there's a guy that you're looking for as kind of a barometer to whether or not Penn State can sneak into the team race here with Iowa, if I had to pick one guy, it's probably Michael Beard, because I think his talent, again, is just through the roof. It's just again, making those little adjustments, and we've seen him make it throughout the course of the season. Now can he, pick up a couple of little things that he learned at the Big Ten and, make another dramatic leap forward to get at least into the top 8 here in All-America. But that first matchup, you're right, Steve, is just really key because, again, it is on paper a toss-up match, but I think it's one that Michael Beard can certainly win, and I really think he can get into the quarterfinals. But, again, much like Brady Berge or Rodney Howard, it's not inconceivable that he could go 0-2 here and not score a point for Penn State either in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Greg Kirkland is somebody that didn't wrestle a lot. He's had some, but even in the short period of time, he's had some spectacular moments. So how much of a mystery is this for him at 285? Because, there isn't a lot out there about him.
Yeah, and I just don't think, for this season, I think he'll close the gap pretty quickly, even on the upper echelon
I agree.
next year.
Yep.
But he just has not had the mat time, and you can see, I mean, he's willing himself through some of these bouts, but the conditioning, through no fault of his, I mean, it's just not there. Now, obviously, they're hoping it's better this tournament than it was the Big Tens, and I'm sure it will be. But, to me, going into this thing, I think, Gable Steveson obviously has separated himself from everybody else. Yeah. I think Mason Paris has separated himself from everybody else after Gable. And then I think there's another drop-off to Tony Cassiope, but then he has separated himself from the rest of the field. I think Ray Kirkfleet, though, is right there with the rest of the field. And I think a 4th or 5th place finish is certainly not out of the question. And, again, if Penn State is going to sneak into the team race here and try to capture another team title, Greg Kirkfleet's going to have to be part of that equation. He's going to have to probably be a top 5 guy anyway here for Penn State to have a realistic shot of tracking down the team championship.
All right, we always lock in for obvious reasons on the Penn State wrestlers. So as you go through and observe this, Jeff, give me a couple of guys that you're really interested to see and where they are that aren't from Penn State, but have the potential to be outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you start just because of our listening audience with the Hively brothers, right? I mean, Hayden, who, North Carolina State fans will tell you earned the win over the semifinal and championship out there. Yeah. That's just as good as it gets in college wrestling.
Finally on this, the Big Ten Wrestling Championship ratings were at a record high, up 26% from a year ago, which is fabulous. But obviously at this level, not everybody has Cale's philosophy of the go-for-it move. I mean, let's face it, what makes Bo Nickel legendary is he takes what appears to be near disaster and turns it into sudden victory. It's legendary. But that's because he went for it. Sometimes, are there times where you feel when you're watching it, Jeff, that at this level, when you get to the championship level, that there's a lot of wrestling not to lose?
Yeah, and I do think it's changed slightly here, and I do think it's a big part of the Penn State influence here with Cale Sanderson in that, like any sport, you're going to get copycats when you see success. And I think there's a lot more coaches that are preaching, listen, let's go out and score as many points as we can rather than let's try to win. And it's an important difference here in terms of trying to grow the sport. But also, and I think you're seeing it's why Iowa has had the success it's had over the last couple of seasons is they have guys that are not content with going out there and trying to win, that they are trying to go out there and dominate and score as many points as you can. And I think, I do think we're seeing more top-level guys that are doing that. And again, I think there is the potential for some really entertaining final matchups this year. And, it really from the quarterfinals in, you hope that that's the case because, yes, with as many eyeballs as I think will be on the sets this year, and obviously with the fan capacity very limited here, I mean, no general public tickets are available. I suspect we are going to see a large television audience again on ESPN. And yeah, you hope that you do get these guys being willing to go out and go for it. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a 12-10 bout. I mean,
exactly.
there can be entertaining 3-2 bouts.
Yep.
But you need that action. You need the guys going for it. And if you get some great counter wrestling, fantastic, all the better. But you need that action, I think, to try to draw in the casual fan. And it's been something that obviously Cal Sanderson has preached from day one. But I think you're getting more teams and more individuals buying into that mindset, and I definitely think it's important and good for the sport.
Again, Big Ten network ratings were up 26% at the championships this year. That's phenomenal.
Yep.
Phenomenal. Jeff, always a pleasure. Thanks so much, my friend. You'll have a great weekend. I'm looking forward to listening to as much as I can.
Thanks, Steve. Greatly appreciate it.
Jeff Byers. All right, back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors.
If you want to have a fun day, you have to drive a Hyundai. From Sunbury Motors Hyundai. Sunbury Motors Hyundai has 18 brand new 2020 Hyundais that have to go now. Choose from 7 2020 Elantras with savings up to $49.70, starting at $16,997. 2020 Tucson Sport SUVs have a $56.90 discount and start at $25,740. Hurry in, only 2 left. One last 2020 Santa Fe with a $6,050 discount was $39,585. Now only $33,535. And there's one last Veloster for only $18,785. Now is the time for big discounts on 2020 new Hyundais at Sunbury Motors Hyundai. Hyundai is still producing amazing cars with the 2021 North American Car of the Year, the Hyundai Elantra. Save $26,22 on this award-winning sedan starting at $19,823. Now is the time. And Sunbury Motors Hyundai is the place in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai, and great new inventory, fabulous pre-owned inventory, all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. All right. Okay, so great to have you with us on the show today. Lines are open. You want to call in and talk? Love to hear from you. So we should talk at some point about the NCAA tournament. I haven't even had a chance to look at the bracket yet.
Yeah, you and the King got to get your brackets filled out for our own bracket challenge for the show.
Yeah. I haven't even looked at it. And there's a reason. I mean, things have been a little crazy around here last few
I was about to say,
days.
things have been a little busy, so it's
been
rightful.
A little busy.
Yeah.
Haven't quite got around to that yet. Yeah.
It's justified why your bracket's not filled out quite yet.
That's okay. Look, I can tell you, just without even looking at it, the two teams I'll get through the Final Four that are 1 seeds are Gonzaga and Illinois. I don't even have to look at the bracket to think that way.
And that's who I have,
so
too.
That's the, now, when it comes to Baylor and Michigan, I see issues. Baylor has not been playing as well as, for whatever reason. Look, this happens. I mean, sometimes you come off a a COVID stoppage and you just don't play as well. You lose your rhythm. Now, they've been good enough to win games, but there's something that's just not quite there with them. And for Michigan, there's a couple things. Number one, Dickinson's not playing as well. It may free him up in this tournament a bit because he's going against guys that are not in his category as opposed to locking in against the guys like Kofi Coburn, Luka Garza, people like that. He'll have more freedom, but not having Isaiah Livers is huge. That is huge. Dick in Milton on basketball transfers. Long time no hear, too long. It is great to hear you.
Well, I listened to Jeff. I knew he was going to be on today, and I really didn't want to miss that 25-minute segment, and it was enjoyable. I mean, he always has a good take. But my other thing was, and I really hadn't paid much attention to. I knew Penn State had was hiring a new basketball coach because I caught you on the day that was in the news, and it wasn't official back then. But my other question is, my question really is, with all these guys dropping out and going into the portal, and I'm not sure who's coming in. What happens to Penn State basketball next year? I know I have a team. That's not what I mean. But where's this go?
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know. That's why people have said to me, "Why have you been so calm about this?" And as you know, for the most part, I'm pretty calm about most things. To the point where the suit used to ask if I was in a coma. I'm one that always likes to let things play out. As much as we want to know now what everybody is doing, I'm willing to let it play out. The players that have put their names into the portal, of which there are 7, one had done it early in the season, then, of course, 6 this week. They want to look at their options, and when you're looking around and saying they've had 3 head coaches in 5 months, that's a lot to absorb for anybody, like having 3 supervisors in 5 months. Well, now you get 3 coaches in 5 months, and they don't know the new coach at all. Everybody will tell you that Micah Shrewsbury, from Brad Stevens to we had Rob Blackman on yesterday, what a terrific guy he is. Now, I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet, other than the, hey, how you doing, pass him on the way to the bench, things like that. But everybody says he's a terrific guy. I can tell you the guys that have their names in the portal, now that I do know, they are terrific guys. And as I said yesterday, I'd like to see the ability to have a terrific guy get in front of other terrific guys and have them talk to each other face to face, because I think it would be important. But the players are looking at their options, Dick, and it doesn't mean that they can't return, because Lamont Wade and Cam Sullivan-Brown obviously did. They came back. Kyle McCloskey last year put his name in the transfer portal for basketball. Kyle came back. So that does happen. That's why I'm just going to be patient and let it play out. Say they don't come back, which I think goes to the point of your question. Would that be fair, Dick? Say they don't come back.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much my question. These guys are playing Big Ten basketball and scholarships, and arguably the best conference in NCAA basketball. They're gonna have a coach that came from a program that they're familiar with at Purdue, even though they didn't play for Purdue. They know Purdue, and I'm sure they know what this guy's capable of bringing, and he obviously coming from the NBA. I mean, it looks. I would have thought the upside right now. This is taking nothing away from Coach Ferry or anybody else. The upside for Penn State basketball to me would have looked pretty good, just to say, I'm going to try something else for maybe. That's my point.
Well, I mean, and Mike is going to be that kind of guy that you're talking about. He's known as being an excellent recruiter. He's known as being an excellent offensive mind, and there'll be a payoff down the road. You'd like to have as many of these guys stay. That way he's got a foundation to start from instead of completely starting over. And today, of course, you have the late signing period. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. Question is, who can you get in the late signing period? I mean, you'd like to see him laying the foundation to get several guys in the early signing period in November. Then there's the transfer portal. All right, the transfer portal is absolutely available. I think it's now, over 600 names are in the transfer portal right now. So
it's like
how
an
many
encyclopedia of basketball players.
Right, exactly. And can you get guys out of that? I always refer to it, Dick, as the waiver wire. I feel like it's the waiver wire college basketball. But can you get guys out of that to then, and you should be able to come in here and play. But you and I both know, Dick, that the transfer portal is used to fill gaps, all right? To get a guy or two that then fill a need for you to go with the guys you have recruited in your program. It's not there to build the program with. And that's the problem with the transfer portal. If you have so many transfers in there, that's not the way to build. It's just the way to fill gaps.
Well, the other thing that's kind of bad about next year, because all these guys at most major schools can have a fifth year, another free year. I
know, and that's why, for example...
So who leaves a team? Who's actually leaving a team? I mean, I have no idea. And the other thing, that does Penn State, did they have anybody actually committed for next year off the bat? Do you know off one or two players? I have no idea. I guess I didn't check.
They have 3 players verbally commit before everything happened. Then when the early signing day came up, all 3 backed out of their verbal commitments before signing day. Because at that point, Patrick was out. They all backed out of their verbal commitments at that point. But one of them has since said, I wouldn't mind still coming there. He hasn't signed yet, so I can't really get into him, but there is also that possibility. So even that part was lean. They had 3 of them, and there was pretty good balance on the 3, but none of them did sign in November. Which was 2 weeks. The signing day was 2 weeks after the change was made.
Well, I appreciate all this. I tell you, this goes back to what we talked about several years ago. I'm not sure who and I'll call the person an idiot in the NCAA that thought, well, this is a good idea. Let guys go where they want in this portal of wrestling and basketball or whatever, or football. I just think it was idiotic. And I think it's coming back to bite a lot of teams and schools, and I just don't understand the reasoning behind it. I mean, guys were given a scholarship to play there, and basically when they walk in the door as a freshman, if they're not happy by the time they end their freshman year, I'm leaving. I just think it's stupid, and I'm not sure what that was all about.
Part of it is by granting freedom of movement. I think they're trying to stay away from people who would, for example, maybe take them to court over it. How about that? So they grant that kind of freedom. I'm talking about the NCAA. Now, there are only 5 sports where you have to sit out a year. Now, wrestling's not one of them. You can move from school to school and wrestle right away.
Right.
The 5 are men's and women's basketball, ice hockey, baseball, and football. Now, that's going to change, too. That's going to change. And right now you have the one-time transfer rule where guys can go. But you look at wrestling, for example, Dick, let's go to something you really know a lot about, and that is wrestling. Most of the time it is a guy that transfers in. For the most part, wrestling is built with your recruiting. I think that would be fair to say. And every once in a while, a guy transfers in. Is that fair?
Yeah, like Iowa, he's a 141-pounder who's number 1 in the country, transcended for Missouri. I mean, that was my whole kind of a bitch about wrestling. A guy looks out there and says, "Man, they're losing a guy that I just finished second to, and he's graduating, and I got another year left, and he's graduating from Penn State, Iowa, whatever." And you know what? I'm just gonna go there next year and fill his spot. And it's hard to argue that he won't make the lineup and be that guy. I guess that's my point. And it happens. It happens. Rutgers picked up a couple guys that way. Obviously, Iowa picked up a guy. I mean, I haven't seen anybody come into Penn State other than 190. That guy came back with 197-pounder a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. He got injured, and he actually just had an extra year there. I think he was a graduate student when he came in. That 197-pounder came from. He was like 3rd in the country, and he was injured for a year, so he had a medical redshirt year.
Kent State, maybe.
No, it wasn't Kent. That might have been. But my point being is he came in there with high expectations, and he actually got re-injured at Penn State.
Remember the year that the year, for example, they got that kid that came in from Iowa State, and then he got he had gotten in a little trouble out there.
Yeah.
He came in,
I guess I'm just not wild about it because guys they just go from being the big dog on the team to going in there and filling a void at one weight class. They know they're going to be on maybe a number 1 or number 2 team in the country, or maybe not even that, but they're going to go in there and they're going to wrestle right off the bat. Rutgers has 2 guys. It happens, and I just never was wild about it.
Yeah, Soriano, of course, left here and went to Rutgers, won the national title.
Yeah, but the other kid out of the 141 pounder, came in. He was a national champion. Came in from Northwestern or one of the Indiana schools, into Rutgers and jumped right in the lineup. Must be at 41 or 33.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I guess my point being is they see a real quick way to jump into a big spot on a really, really good team. Maybe their team wasn't as good, and I just think it's just not fair to the other guys that got recruited at those teams. I guess that's my other point.
And there's so many moving parts now. I mean, I put together a lot of work in the off season, so because you're trying to stay ahead of the game in what I do. And you should see the number of times now, Dick, I have to change late because, that guy showed up? That guy's on the team now? Okay, great. And it's happening more and more. But again, it's the ability the transfer portal to me is the ability to fill gaps. I don't think Penn State has anybody in its wrestling lineup that's a transfer right now.
They have none.
Obviously, basketball, Sam Sessoms, so that was one.
Yeah.
Football now has more guys, but it's more spots to fill, too. I mean, that's, you're talking about an 85 scholarship sport. So.
Well, I'm going to let you get off here, but I don't know if you mentioned it, but Danville won their game last night in their first round playoff game against Scranton Prep, and they're moving on in the next round against in the state championships against, I think, one of the teams out of the Harrisburg area this weekend. So it's a pretty big deal. I mean, they're pretty good. They're not bad, obviously.
It's a big deal, and of course the tough one was Shikellamy, unable to play, so Central Mountain's going to play in their place.
Right.
Hate that.
Well, I see the NCAA have to go out and get a few more officials anyhow for the basketball.
Yeah,
they lost 6 right off the bat.
They lost 6, and not only that, but there's you know how many Final Fours those guys have? There's a lot of Final Fours in that group. Teddy's done 8. Ayers has done. Roger, I think, has done 6. John Higgins has done 6. Roger Ayers has done 4. It's like 17 or 18 Final Fours in those 6 guys. Kip Kissinger's done 1. Unbelievable.
I don't know if he's officiating. Maybe Teddy Valentine will be back in the lineup. He doesn't officiate anymore, does he?
Teddy, no. Oh, yeah, no, Teddy was one of the guys knocked out.
He was. I wasn't even sure if he was even doing games anymore.
Teddy's doing a lot of SEC. He's doing Southeastern Conference games right now, not the Big Ten.
I got you. So, maybe he'll be back in the lineup then.
They're independent contractors. Yeah, they're independent contractors, so that's why they change conferences, and it's, that's like Roger Ayers usually works the ACC. Oh, my goodness, the amount of money they make as independent contractors, that's why they work sometimes 5, maybe as much as 6. As often as 6 times a week. They're trying to garner as much cash as they can in a short period of time.
Football, NCAA football is not that. Is that the same way? Because they bring whole crews in. Those crews usually work from game to game. Don't they just move from place to place? A whole crew.
Yeah, right. They're whole crews, and some work. For example, the Big Ten also works Mid-American Conference, but they're only 1 game a week. So since they're 1 game a week, maybe they'll pick up a midweek game when the Mid-American Conference goes midweek, but that's it. And because it's a week-by-week thing, that's not as much of an issue. Basketball, they can pick up a game on almost any night.
Yeah, because they play 7 days a week, and they play college basketball almost every day somewhere. Exactly.
But you know what you're finding? There's a shortage of officials now on the high school level. California, now obviously with COVID it's been different, But before the
only
COVID
thing I know
outbreak,
this year, it wasn't because the fans were yelling at them.
Right. Before the COVID
That's
outbreak.
always been a big thing about it.
California.
They're not supposed to listen to the fans, but nobody was just being assaulted by the fans this year in any sport. I saw my first, by the way, I got to see my first live sporting event on Saturday or Sunday over at Bucknell. I went over to the men's lacrosse for a while, and it got too cold and windy. I guess that's the first time I've seen a live event since last basketball season anywhere.
Well, good to have you back out there. It's good that you were able to go.
The other thing, my brother and I talked about this. Right now, we would be probably somewhere almost out to St. Louis if we weren't there by now. So that didn't happen again this year.
I know.
Or last year
I thought about that.
Anyhow, nice talking to you, Steve.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I thought about that. Nice talking to you too, Dick. Yeah, I was going to say, California in high school football, there's such a shortage of officials. California is now playing high school games on Wednesdays and Fridays. Why? So they can double up the officials. That's because there's a shortage. We'll wrap it up in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKO. Great to have you with us on the show today. Adam Zucker on the show tomorrow. Dave Cicchini on the show tomorrow. More Cicchini, less suit. It's really no.
You, sir, are my hero,
and justifiably so. The great line from the old show WKRP in Cincinnati. It had the newscaster Les Nessman, winner of the Silver Sow Award. And Dr. Johnny Fever, played by Howard Hessman, would go on and say, more music, Les Nessman. Today's show has been brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai, the best. Fabulous pre-owned inventory, all with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. Sales staff that always works with you. Service department, it's top-notch. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com on News Radio 1070 WKOK.